So we have the honor of having Maria Rivera and Ruben Altamurano here with us to share their insight as parents. They have elementary school children and they have a middle school child. And so I invited them specially because they have a very powerful parent insight set of strategies and stories to share. And so I had a couple questions for you guys. First, I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us, because all of our listeners are teachers, most of whom 99% are in charge of the well-being and learning of students who speak other languages at home. And then, of course, administrative teams, principals, vice principals, ESL coaches, special needs coaches, and then professors and early language education specialists. That's our target audience. And but we also realize that a lot of parents are parenting children at different age levels and in different schools. So the insights you share today will be very helpful. So I wanted to start by asking you, were both of you classified as English as second language learners when you were sort of going to either elementary, middle, or high school?
So myself, I came to this country, I'm from El Salvador. I came to this country when I was 4 years old, and I came to Brooklyn, New York. So I can say, yes, I was put in ESL. Honestly, I never heard that term until I came here to Maryland. But my experience as, my elementary school experience in a public school in Brooklyn, New York, my classroom was full of, a lot of Latino kids from different countries. However, the teacher spoke Spanish and English to us. So I wasn't taken out of my classroom. And I really, wish it could still be like that. I was not taken out of my classroom for any subjects. I was in my classroom, and the teacher, who was bilingual, used to teach us English. Like she would have chair on, la silla. So we knew, and we had to repeat after her. But I never heard the term ESL until I came here to Maryland.
This is so amazing that you had that experience with that teacher, because this is what we're aiming for. Our organization is called the National Association for Bilingual Education, and we're pushing for more bilingual teachers. Like, even if you're not a designated bilingual school, you can still make learning more fun and more beneficial for all students if you use two languages, like your teacher in Brooklyn used two languages. So this is phenomenal that you had that dual language experience in your childhood. And I can see the benefits because you're fluent in both English and Spanish. So, and that's precisely what we're aiming for. Although we know that in the United States, there are many states that are English only, including Arizona, Alabama, where in a public school setting, you're not allowed to use another language as a teacher. You can allow our child to translate for another child, but you're not allowed those other services. And there are quite a few states like that, but at least 50% of states, including Maryland, where you're now based, are open. They don't have legislation that says that they're only English only. So that's a good thing. So as a parent of an elementary school student, a middle school student, and I didn't get to hear, of course, Ruben's experience. Were you ever classified? Did you have the benefit of having both languages used in your schooling, Ruben?
Not at all. So I come from Mexico when I was like 14. So I went straight to high school, and I didn't have that experience because my ESL teacher only speaks English, but.
Yes, and so that you can see that difference. It sounds like you would have loved to have had the experience Maria had. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. And then one thing I can also say is as a child, I always was engaged and I never felt excluded. Ruben also mentions that sometimes he felt, kind of embarrassed because he was being pulled out and missed out on important information from, a certain material when he was pulled out of class. So, socially it was awkward. Where with me, my teacher made it fun. I never felt like I wasn't part of, of the whole school experience because I was Latino or Hispanic. I just felt like I was going to school and I was having fun while I was learning English.
Exactly. And it's so interesting that you use the word pulled out, because still there are many schools all across the country that use the pull out system, or the pull in, as they call it. They bring the ESL instructors to work with the ESOL students. But how can you have another teacher working with you when the rest of the class is working on something different? It's very distracting for both the student, and also singles them out. So these are the kinds of practices that we're trying to get away from. And that's why our organization is pushing for bilingualizing the teaching of English, and making teachers more aware of, the benefits of learning another language, thanks to YouTube and other apps that are available on their own time. So you're constantly learning. And of course, you're not going to learn all the languages of every student that you have, but at least you can make the effort, because just the effort alone can make that child feel special and make them want to learn. Am I right, Maria and Ruben?
Yes, definitely.
That's right.
Absolutely. So we have here Yessie. Yessie is an amazing teacher and doctoral student. I just learned this morning that she was a kindergarten and first grade teacher. Am I right, Yessie, in Chicago? Yes. And
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you so much. She is just she's like battery powered. She's like, she missed not a single meeting today, and she drove 2 hours. You made it to Portland?
Yes, we just got here, but we ran into like a lot of accidents. It was really icy, and so I'm sorry for the delay.
No, welcome, bienvenidos. I mean, this is amazing that you joined us. So we have on the line, we have Maria Rivera, one of the most powerful speakers I've ever had the opportunity to meet. I mean, honestly, her story and her experience from her childhood is fascinating. And then, of course, Rueben Altamurano. So we have the honor of having them both here, raising 3 children, one of whom is a middle schooler and 2 elementary school students in Maryland. So fortunately, we just learned that Maria, when she was growing up, she first came to Brooklyn, New York, and her teacher back in the day was using Spanish and English using a bilingual approach. Meanwhile, Ruben, you said your experience was more like what? I'll let you speak for yourself.
Well, it was more like a kind of like frustrating experience, because I couldn't understand all the English that I have learned it with Maria and with the kids. So that's pretty much what I got all my English, but I didn't get it a lot from the school.
I'm not surprised. And you said you were 14, am I right, when you went to high school? And you had an ESOL teacher, and you were just sharing that the English you learned didn't come from school. It came mostly from the kids and from Maria.
Yes.
And I think that in itself tells us a lot, because during the pandemic and right after the pandemic, they said 3 million children are missing from school, and 90% of those students are ESOL students. I personally know of about 6 high schoolers who are from Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico, who dropped out during the pandemic because they said that it was so frustrating. And it was so much easier to go make money and actually practice English on the job. So I'm not surprised that your experience, is reflective of the inability of schools to really engage students and get them to graduate and or be as successful as they can possibly be. So could you please share your experience, Maria and Ruben, with the elementary schools in Maryland? And for example, do you believe that the schools have been engaging the parents as much as they could? And what are some strategies that teachers could use? And in your case, you're fluent in English, but what about those parents who don't feel comfortable with their English or who don't have the time to go to the schools? Because both of you are business owners, so you have a little bit of flexibility in that you are not locked into the hours, and so you try to make time for, and you always make time for the meetings at the schools. So go ahead and share your experience, please.
So I am elementary school. I have a child that attends pre-K, and we also have a third grader. And I must say that even with my pre-K, he goes to school and he has a full day of school, which is amazing. They're both bilingual. Both of our children are bilingual. Even though they're bilingual, I have noticed that with them, sometimes it's harder for them to really manage both languages. I noticed that either, they're struggling with Spanish or they struggle with English. And I did talk to the pediatrician before, and they told me it's okay because they're so young. Sometimes they're still struggling and trying to figure out which language they want to use. So, but with the teachers have really been amazing. If one of my kids is struggling with any material in particular, I do get a phone call home. I do get, support groups that are already put in place. Some teachers that have called me, they are, only English speaking. So if I was a parent that didn't know English, I would find that a little bit frustrating. And the stuff that they send home is also in English. So again, if I didn't know English, that also would be frustrating, and I wouldn't be able to get my children the help that they need. And other times I do get a call and it is somebody that greets me in Spanish, which I do appreciate because I think about that mother or, father that doesn't know the language and that's able to get that help that they need or just communicate, with the teacher or the nurse when they're getting a phone call home. So overall, my experience with elementary school has been very hands-on. They have offered a lot of programs for my children, and my kids, they both love going to school.
That's such good. That's good. That's so good to hear. Your thoughts, Ruben? Anything you want to add?
No, it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
We have had a good experience.
That's wonderful. Now, these support groups, if you were a teacher at an elementary school, what would you do differently with engaging parents of different language groups?
I would say, I would like for them to try to get the Spanish community involved. That's something that I would love to see. More Spanish speaking or bilingual speaking teachers. I think that's also very important. So, they can feel comfortable. And also trying to make activities where the parents know that there's going to be somebody that's going to be able to speak their language. And they're also going to be able to feel like, they're going to be able to communicate and engage. I think that some activities, honestly, some parents may not go because they're scared that there's not going to be nobody that speaks their language at the activity. So they tend to hesitate and they say, I'm not going to understand. And so they don't attend.
So, yeah. So how can we galvanize community? Obviously, having people like you sort of being advocates is a big step. But are there any other suggestions that schools can use to sort of get more parents to engage? And, now that we have technology, you don't physically have to assemble in one place. You can have like these calls, these Zoom calls. You could have WhatsApp messaging. Are schools using this as much as they could?
Definitely. I think that we can use, technology, which we all, use WhatsApp or some form of technology to be able to reach out to the parents. And like I said, a liaison, somebody that's able to, represent the Spanish community, something, or any community, not only the Spanish community, but any community is so important just to make the experience of that child the best that it can be. Something that my husband did not say, Ruben, was that he decided also to leave high school because he just felt frustrated as well because of the, that he felt like he was not understanding. And the teacher that was teaching him didn't know Spanish either, so he didn't feel comfortable asking any questions. And it's a new country, so it was very hard for him to really understand, and he didn't understand either how to really move forward with his academically. So he decided it was easier for him to leave school and also go to work.
I see. This is amazing. And thank you for sharing that. And here you are. So what has helped you be so successful? Could you share? I mean, obviously you both had, in your case, Maria, you had a wonderful teacher. In your case, Ruben, you decided to leave school, and yet you were able to be enterprising. It's not easy, because a lot of people who don't have that diploma, they struggle in terms of, especially if they don't know the English language, because it's that much more difficult, right? And so that is something that is really interesting. And I'm just sort of commenting. I'm not really, I don't know where, there's not really a question here. It's just really amazing that you guys are so enterprising. So let's talk about your middle school experience. Could you share that experience, and how maybe do you have is there a Latin liaison at the middle school level? And I know that you all went through a traumatic experience with your daughter being bullied, and both your daughter and you both, and the children, the other family members are not only survivors but advocates. So that's one reason I wanted you to come and speak today, because this is how we learn what to do differently and to prevent bullying, because it's very traumatic. So could you share with the audience a little bit about your experience?
Yes, so we have two children that attend middle school. I have an 8th grader and a 7th grader. September of last year, 2022, we got a phone call from the middle school. It was very scary. They told me my daughter had got into a fight, which my daughter doesn't have that history. She has never been suspended. And I was worried. And my first question was, what happened? To come find out that they were more worried about her condition, because she had suffered a concussion. So they told me, right now, we're not focused on, the fighting and trying to find out the details of what actually happened. We're more worried about her having a concussion, and she's not really looking too good. So I called my husband. We rushed into the school. My daughter had suffered several bruising around her body. She had a black eye. She did suffer a concussion. It was just, I can't put it into words. It was very scary, very frustrating. I was very upset as a mother. We came to the school, and I said directly, I went to the principal's office, and I wanted to know what happened to my daughter, especially seeing her in that state. And she did say, it's just a school fight. It was a school fight. Somebody approached her, and they started, hitting her. At that time, one thing that I am going to say, I was very grateful that I do know the language. I was able to communicate very clearly. And, I called the police because I wanted a police report to be written. I also called the ambulance because my daughter was, suffered a concussion. So I wanted to make sure there was no internal bleeding or what was happening internally. But all those steps, once again, I was able to, advocate for my daughter and for myself because I knew the language.
And you wrote a lot of emails, I remember,
yes.
which are taken very seriously in this country. Everything is written.
Written.
That paper trail.
That paper trail, exactly. So after that, I took my daughter out to school. I was able to later find out, that there was some social media bullying going on, and she was chosen to, get attacked. And I had to even get the Board of Education involved because they didn't want to take my daughter out of the school. And I wanted to make sure that my daughter was able to go to school feeling safe, not feeling like she was going to get attacked. I also pulled out her brother, my son, because they were both attending the same school. So yes, I had to write a couple of emails. Sometimes it was 12 o'clock in the morning and I was writing emails back and forth, letting them know this is not acceptable. And it's not just about my daughter. It's about nobody, no parent should send their, son, daughter to school and then get a phone call and find them in that type of state. It was very scary. I don't wish it upon nobody.
Exactly. And that's one reason I wanted to ask you, what would you have done differently if you were the school administrators in a situation of bullying, and you, as the tables are turned, you both are in the school system, you are either teachers, because you did mention a couple of teachers did observe it. And then of course, there was a counselor at the school. If you were a counselor, a teacher, a parent, some kind of parent liaison, or what would you have done differently? Or what would you say to students who's, what would you say to teachers who are getting training and or educators who are, who need to be culturally sensitive and also emotionally directing their energy towards the well-being of the students, because we know students can't learn unless they feel safe. Families don't feel productive unless their children are happy, and so on and so forth.
So the first thing I would tell teachers is please get to know your students. And why do I say this? The young lady who attacked my daughter has a history of getting into fights. She has a history of skipping and just being disruptive in class, getting suspended. So that was my first thing. When I knew this young lady's history, I asked, why isn't she getting the help that she needs? We have to keep in mind, these are children. So there's something either happening in their household, something is happening with them or to them. And we as educators, we need to, or adults, we need to reach out and talk to the children and get them the help that they need. I do believe all this bullying, this is something that we can prevent. I do truly believe that we can prevent this. So I was taken back when I heard that this is something that this was not the young lady's first fight. This is the history that she has. And I did ask the principal and some teachers, what are you doing to help her? What are you doing to help her and to make sure other students are being safe, they're being kept safe? Mm-hmm. So I would tell them, if you see a student that has a behavioral issue, to please talk to them, try to get the family involved, because if not, I really believe it just progresses. So that's one thing. Another thing is, speaking from my daughter, the victim or me as the parent, I felt like the school didn't give us the resources that we needed. When this happened, I had to look for therapy for my daughter. I was the one telling the school, what resources do you have for my daughter when she goes back to school? Because she was diagnosed with PTSD. She was having a lot of anxiety. And I think that, the school should have had all these resources from day one. They knew everything that she's went through because they saw the video. I didn't have access to that video until a couple of days later. But when we talk about both students, my daughter and the young lady who, attacked my daughter, she needs help as well. And I told the principal that, even though my daughter was removed from the school, this young lady is still a student somewhere else. And we need to get her the help that she deserves. So she won't, hurt herself or end up hurting others.
Very important. And then I'm glad you mentioned that. And you mentioned to me that even your elementary school child ended up seeing the video, which you were worried about. And I did see the video, and your daughter is totally the victim. She should have nothing to fear because she shouldn't even be embarrassed because there's somebody attacking her. She is not, fighting back, so that she is playing the upper hand. She is in a position of empowering herself because she is not being, she's not attacking, she's being attacked. But I'm curious, how does an elementary school child get, to be sort of pulled into this? Because you did mention that your son was shown the video and as at the elementary school level. And so it's affecting even an elementary school child in the same family, right? So, and since our organization is focused on early childhood, at least for now, I was curious, how did your son respond? I know he's very close to his sister. He probably admires her even more and sees her as a hero. But initially, it was probably a traumatic experience for him, right?
Yes, Anita. It was a traumatic experience for all of us. So the day that happened to my daughter, she had bruising everywhere. By the second day, she could already notice, she had a black eye. So when we brought her in that state home, both of our young, sons, they were afraid. They were afraid. They were sad. They didn't understand why this happened to their older sister. When my son was showing the video, we did tell him, your sister got hurt at school, but we didn't go into detail because he's 8 years old, and we felt like it was just too much already for him to handle. Right. So why throw more at him? He already saw Janaya, and we had to do a lot of things even at home for her to feel safe.
Right.
But then I was going to pick them up for dismissal, my two youngest, and some middle school kids that come to pick up their siblings at their school, at the elementary school. I guess they know my son, and they decided to show him the video of the fight.
On their own? They just approached him with no permission, with no nothing, and they said...
No. Yes, because it was dismissal time, so I was their car rider. So I was picking them up from school. The kids were walking outside. They showed him the video. When my son got into the car, my daughter was there. So I just admire that. He was really upset, and I could see it in his face. But he thought of his sister, so he looked at me. He said, "I have something to tell you." And then he saw his sister's face, and then he said, "I'll tell you home." So when we got home, he ran after me. He said, "Mom, I have to talk to you." We came to my bedroom. I shut the door. I said, "What's going on?" And he told me. He said, "Mom, I saw the video of Janaya getting hurt. I saw it." And he said, "I didn't know it was so bad." So it was very frustrating because I'm trying to, protect them from this video. But then he was exposed to it already.
But now he sees what a hero she is.
Yes.
So, and also the point of this was to show that even if you have a sibling in middle school, that a child in elementary school can still be involved and be told the information. So it's like a chain reaction. And so they're not immune to, because people have siblings, and so it's like a community. And news travels and people get involved, and the kids are not exempt. They have to build a thick skin. They have to become heroes. And your children have demonstrated that they've all become heroes. They were already heroes. Now they're superheroes, right? So that's the reason I was asking, is like, both of you as former, I'd say ESL students, now as parents, looking back, thinking about this experience and sharing your insights, that is so powerful. So I'm just so grateful that you joined us today. Do you have any closing comments for us?
Well, I'm grateful that you guys are taking the time to look into, the dual language community. I really hope that, I wish you guys the best, and I really hope that you guys are able to make a difference in these children's life. I know that the experience that you have in school really impacts you later on as an adult and your ability to be, successful in life. So I wish you guys the best, and thank you for hearing our story.
You're very welcome. And I hope that you won't stop advocating as you have been today, both of you here on the show, coming and talking to us and giving us permission to share this recording with our national body of members. And Janaya is a hero. I know that you are continuing to remind her that she has to be the voice against bullying, and that, this experience has only made her grow. It's been a hard experience, but it's made her grow and flourish. And she's going to come out stronger. And all of you are going to come out stronger and as the voice of the community. So I thank you for doing what you're doing and for being so bold as to, come share your story and your insights. And I wish that we could do a Spanish version for the Spanish speaking community. How can they empower themselves? Maybe that could be the next step. We could do a recording for that. And so I'll be in touch about that one. All right.
Okay, definitely. Thank you for having us, Anita.
You're welcome. Muchas gracias. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
De nada. Gracias.